I don't think I realized how intense it was going to be, like 21 cities in 90 days. I've always traveled, but when you give up everything, you're chasing a dream, you don't have any money. And Ben Jones and I, we actually had 2 other people. So we came out as 2 solo acts. I brought my accompanist, he brought his. We were a new couple that had only really been a couple for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Okay.
And then we get on a plane to America to change our life, not knowing anyone. Not literally our dream, our pipe dream is to become musicians, like artists. Like maybe at that point I still had a little bit of like, oh, I'm going to be a superstar. So like that concoction, it was a ride. It was a rough ride, but I would not have changed it. I would not change it for the world, because that is one of my lifelong best friends now, that we've seen the darkest of dark and the lightest of light, and we still stand on stage and make beautiful music together.
Yeah, that's great. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Pints and Professionals. I am your host, Ramon Mejia with Resolute Media. I capture and I create videos, so if you ever in need, please let me know. Today's episode brings us to the very bright, the very energetic, the very talented Andrea Magee. She came in all the way from Ireland just for this podcast. I'm kidding. She actually lives here, and she's been living here for quite some time. She's a hardworking musician who runs her own nonprofit, and also I just found out today she is throwing her own festival and has been for the past 3 years. Thank you all for watching. Every view matters, every share matters, every like matters. I can't thank you enough. So I hope you enjoy this episode. And if not, then, well, leave a comment if you don't like it. That's cool too. Hey, this is America. Do what you want. But without further ado, here's Andrea. How was the meeting?
The meeting, it was good. I'm like, what day? Where are we? It was good. I took time off. We're just chatting here.
We're just chatting. Okay. We're getting right to it.
Okay, good. I took time off and went to Ireland for Christmas.
Okay.
And literally in the last 2 days is when I've jumped back into like Andrea Empire World. I switched off, and it's such a dangerous zone for me because I love switching off.
It's nice to unplug, in a sense.
I'm all or nothing. So it's like, when I switch off, I switch off. Like I went, and then when I go to Ireland, I'm just in family mode. So it's almost like it forces me to not I actually got those fake nails on so that I wouldn't play the guitar.
Really?
I've picked them all off because I'm a psycho. But they were, I did like really long ones. My childhood friends saw me and they're like, oh, you've got whore nails on. I was like, yeah.
When me and my wife got married, she's a nurse.
Oh, wow.
So she typically doesn't have, nails. She can't grow them, and she can't have them for work because they interfere with her job. And then she got them when we got married. And when we were honeymooning in Ireland, actually, she was like, I can't wait to get these fucking things off. They're a nightmare.
I'm really heavy-handed as well.
Yeah.
I'm just like, want to get shit done all the time.
Yep.
And I'll switch this over. It was, you can't pick up, like I couldn't pick up a guitar pick. So I took like a hacksaw to them last week because they were really super long. Like you just can't do anything with them.
You didn't put them on yourselves. You went to, okay. All right.
No, I went to get them done just normally. And then I was like, you know what? I really want to make sure that I have a break.
Yeah.
So whack these bad boys on, and I did love them.
Now that stops you from playing guitar, but does that really stop you from like writing?
No.
Okay.
No, definitely. I definitely ruminated on that, but I did write down some lyrics. But it was just like in my mind, I was like, just take a break. Come on, you can do it. You can do it.
Well, how was your trip to Ireland?
It was great.
Yeah.
It was so good. It was so needed. I need to like center myself, and like I love all my work. I love my art. I love being an artist. It takes up my entire brain space. I'm consumed by it constantly. But when I go home, I have this like, I'm going to take a break, but I feel like I can't avoid myself. Sometimes when I'm working hard, I tend to like avoid parts of myself that I don't want to deal with. And then when I get home to Ireland, it's like, okay, now you're going to sit and process all this stuff as well as seeing family. So it's always a very emotional roller coaster ride. But every time I come back, I feel so much better for actually sitting with it, looking at it, dealing with it.
What is it like visiting family? Is it stressful? Do you love it? Is it because you're so far away you actually, not that you don't like your family, but you miss them? You really miss them?
I do really miss them. My family they are my rock. But like every family, it has its, ups and downs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and me and my sister land home. She's got 2 kids, 2 dogs. My parents are used to having a much quieter household. So there's a big transition at the start of like noise, bodies, energy. So that is always a bit of a balancing act. But you know what? Even when it got like difficult or had like little blips, I still feel so grateful that I'm in my wee unit, because when I'm over here, I have so many beautiful friends and basically like a family here, but I don't feel like I belong as much anywhere as when I'm home. So like that feeling of belonging is like something I miss. It's like you can't really compare like family belonging to like new setting belongings. You can do your best to recreate your life, but when I go home to Ireland, it's like I like go into this pillow of like, oh, you know me, you know every corner of who I am, and you don't judge me for it, and you don't, criticize me for it. Yeah. Like you do in your own way, but it comes from so much love. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, nothing feels like home,
Yeah.
So what part of Ireland do you live in, or did you grow up in?
In Belfast, like the outskirts of Belfast, so north.
How far away is that from Dublin?
So there's a really good road now, and it's like I think it's 1 hour 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours.
Okay, all right.
Kind of similar to like here to Dallas or here to Houston.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of, did we go to Belfast first or did we go to Dublin? Either way, we had a blast over there.
Yeah.
Everyone was so welcoming and so happy and so cheerful. Every pub we went into, just like, hey, what can we get you to drink? Where are you from? It's just, they treated us
I love
so
hearing
yeah,
that.
it's so great. So why is it always like that?
You're not the first person that
given the
said
history
that.
of the country,
I'm sure not, but like I have heard this from a good few people, and I got a couple of Ubers. I did actually hit the ground running when I got home this time and was out and about the town a lot with my sisters and friends. And I almost feel like I got to experience a little bit of that for the first time, because a lot of people have said, God, I went to Belfast and people are so great. And every person that I engaged with over that holiday, I felt the same. I was like, wow, you're really cool and really friendly. I think it's just like a way of being. Like there's been so much heartache and so much like trauma, civil unrest, war, that in order to survive, you like you cling on to the good stuff. Like you cling on to the stuff that you can control. Like you can control how pleasant you are to somebody that you don't know. Right. And these are like real deep rooted values, I think, that so many people have, but I do find them in Belfast a lot, of like people don't take themselves seriously. They're very real, and like they'll call you out as soon as they think you're being an asshole.
For sure.
There's like, even like the Uber driver was here listening to me and my sister chat in the back, and he was just laughing because he was like, oh, there's just no shit with you two. And it's like, yeah, that's like, that is a reminder of what I grew up with, is like nobody's perfect by any means and everybody's flawed, but I definitely come from like an upbringing and, circles of people that are just don't stand for bullshit.
Right, yeah.
And I wonder if that plays into the happiness thing.
Yeah, it kind of does. Seems like it anyways.
Well, you're carrying less, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're just, I think that's why my wife has such a, I guess a dark sense of humor, is because she's dealing with tragedy all day, every day. And it's like, well, you got to find some humor in it, or else it's going to, not be so fun. So
yeah. And I'm sure it just puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
And then you have a lighter, like when your wife is saving people's lives,
right,
then it comes to like, things that we might normally get annoyed at. I'm sure she's like, oh my God, get over the fact that there's no creamer. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think that carries over so well in those little things.
Well, coffee's important, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a morning.
she actually had like a a piece of information from when she was going to school, and I guess she was taking it to work for a new hire they had, and I opened it, and it was quite disgusting.
Really?
Because she's a wound care nurse.
Okay.
So just imagine all the terrible things that can. And
I'm
I
so
saw it.
Squeamish.
Yeah, I saw it first thing at like 6 a.m.
Wow.
And she's like, "Welcome to my world." That's exactly what I walk into.
Wow. That's like, honestly, your wife, that's the heroes of this world. Like, they're the people that the light should be shone on, because they are
yes.
just incredible. What they do, what they offer. Thank you to your wife and everybody else out there that does,
yeah, she'll say, yeah.
care workers.
I'll pass that along to her.
Yeah.
But anyway, so where was it going with that? So you grew up. When did you start playing music? When did that first?
So I grew up on the outskirts of Belfast, and then also in Donegal, which is on the west coast of Ireland. My dad was a teacher, so every summer we would spend like 2 to 3 months in the west and the south of the west coast.
Okay.
But so my
what grade did he teach?
High school, so
Okay.
11 to 18-year-olds.
Oh,
I was
wow.
also a high school music teacher.
Really? I had
before
no
I
idea.
came
Okay.
here
All right.
For 4 years. Well versed in that. But yeah, no, I started, we would like go for the summers there, and obviously music is just everywhere. In our household anyway, my dad was very passionate about it, so we had a little family band, and I started playing at like the age of 7.
Wow.
I picked up, the boron was originally bought from my mum,
Okay.
because we all played the flute and she didn't want it. So I was like, well, Carrie, my eldest sister's way better on the flute. So I was like, well, I'll try playing this. And I just would go to these little, sessions, Irish sessions with my dad, and sit in the corner and just listen. And that's kind of where that was when the real love for music started. And then I was very fortunate that my primary school, which is kind of the same as kindergarten.
Okay.
It was very steeped in music. So we had an orchestra, we had like,
Wow.
So I think that makes a difference to like your start. If you have somebody in this school that is very musically driven,
Yeah.
which we did. So I learned classical from the age of 7.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of flash forward, of all the places, how long you live in Austin, Texas?
I came over to the United States 2014.
Okay.
Took me a year to get an official visa. So I say like came here 2014, was official 2015.
Did you move anywhere else? Were you looking at any other place?
So
okay.
I came over with Ben Jones, part of my duo Beetroot Revival.
Okay.
The very first trip we did was 21 cities. We literally started in Seattle and made our way over to Boston.
Oh, wow.
And New York. And our goal was just, hey, we want to change our life. If we don't do this now, we're never going to do it. We were 27. I was 27. He was a bit older. And we literally just like tried to get involved in the music scene on 2 to 3 days each time. But what we would do, we would play open mics, and from every open mic we would get something and we'd get in somewhere because we had like a sound. So then during that trip came to Austin halfway through, and nowhere like responded to us the same way that Austin had responded to us on that. So it was like a no-brainer. It was like Austin was like, oh, hi, welcome.
Yeah.
We like you.
Right.
Let us help you. And like these people came out of the woodwork, and like this one lady was like, you can stay in my Airbnb for free. We ended up living with them for 2 years. Like the first gig we got offered was to open for Dale Watson at Chicken Shit Bingo.
Oh, wow.
And then the next night he enjoyed our set so much he invited us to open at the Continental during South by. So it was just like it was just everything aligned, and it just made us fall in love with Austin on that first trip. So I think even though we went to other cities, we went to the Nashville, went to New Orleans, we spent time in Nashville and New Orleans actually. There was nothing that was like treating us or connecting with us in the same way that Austin did.
Man, that's pretty, that says a lot about your guys' music, since you got to play some pretty important Austin staples right off the bat.
It was, I don't know. I think when you take risks and you open yourself up and you try and you've got the right attitude, and you're willing to like put yourself out there, even though sometimes that means that you're going to fall flat in your face and hurt yourself a lot. Like, so things tend to like if you've worked at your craft, like we weren't just coming in and being like, oh, we're 27, we want to be musicians. We'd spent our entire lives at it. So like, and then we were like, let's go to America and focus only on this. I feel like people, energy. People can sense it when you're in it for real.
So that tour, were you kind of sold on we're going to move to America, or was this just kind of like a tester of we're going to feel things out?
I think it was a bit of a tester. I came to America when I was 18 with my sister backpacking.
Okay.
And I remember being in LA and Hollywood and like having this like out of body, like spiritual, you know, when like joy just whooshes over your body.
Yep.
I was standing on the street and I looked at her and I was like, Colleen, I'm going to live here. I'm going to live in America. And I can't, she was like, okay, all right. I mean, I've always been a dreamer. So I just had this feeling that was when I was 18, like went back home, did my degree, did a lot of other life chapters.
Real quick, what was your degree in?
Music.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have an honors degree in music, and then I did a PGC in education. So
that's very impressive.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I don't know whether I held up to any of it. It's in there somewhere.
I'm sure it has helped along the way.
You know what? It was a beautiful life experience. I got to meet people that, you know, are lifelong friends, even though I don't see them anymore. I just still hold them. When you go to uni with people or college with people, it changes your life. I did like operas, and because I've always been into performing, so you just really bond with people in those moments. But yeah, so definitely that was kind of why Austin was just like a no-brainer. We did live in Houma in Louisiana for like a couple of months. We've spent some time in Nashville, but it was always like, oh, Austin feels like home. You know, Austin has this sense of like, I could build something here. We could build something here. I don't even know whether it was that prescribed, actually. I think it was just very organic, and it was that you're so far away from home, you don't have a family, and then the members of the community are stepping into those roles. For me, I was like, oh, I feel my nervous system feels better. I like these people, they're supporting us, and I feel, you have to feel connected, you know, and that was kind of how it all came about.
Going on that tour, how'd you feel about home? Were you homesick at all during that?
Probably a little, honestly. It was quite I don't think I realized how intense it was going to be, like 21 cities in 90 days. I've always traveled, but when you give up everything, you're chasing a dream, you don't have any money, you are insecure, and you're still figuring out who you are, and your ego's still driving the bus. That is a mixture for some serious growth. And Ben Jones and I, we actually had two other people. So we came out as two solo acts. I brought my accompanist, he brought his. We ended up realizing we had a real musical connection. So we put it together when we got to Austin. Actually, in Roswell was the stop before Austin.
Did you see those aliens?
We did. I think that was why it all happened. Yeah, it was intense. We were also a new couple. So this is just like an explosion of like, oh my word. We were a new couple that had only really been a couple for like 4 weeks.
Okay.
And then we get on a plane to America to change our life, not knowing anyone, not literally our pipe dream is to become musicians, like artists. Like maybe at that point I still had a little bit of like, oh, I'm going to be a superstar. So like that concoction, it was a ride. It was a rough ride, but I would not have changed it. I would not change it for the world, because that is one of my lifelong best friends now, that we've seen the darkest of dark and the lightest of light, and we still stand on stage and make beautiful music together.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure there's a lot of great life experiences and great stories that came out of that.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So do you remember the final moment, or the pinnacle moment of like, Austin is a place, this is where I'm going to move, and like, what were the emotions that you put forth to get yourself here?
I don't remember, like, I think it was very an emotional, like, whirlwind at the time, because we were just trying to find our feet. I think the fact that we had like a home base, because this family were like, you can stay with us, that was a big game changer. And I think making friends, my first friend here was Paige DeChaussee, who I'm in like pack with. She has her band called The Reverent Few.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so she was my first friend here. And I think that making a friend really kind of solidified, oh, I could actually survive here, still with this crazy pipe dream of like, I don't want to settle, but I knew that we needed a base. And yeah, I just think there was a lot of different contributing factors, and the fact that we seem to be able to work and make money here. Like, whereas other cities, it didn't seem the same as that. Like, there wasn't that. We just, like, people were like really visiting the tip jar when they saw us, and like really going above and beyond to help us.
Did you have plans to get a side job or anything like that? Did you work any other jobs?
No.
Wow, just straight.
Well, because I was a head of department in a music in a high school in London, just outside London. So I like made this decision of like, it's go time. It's all or nothing. Like, I'm walking away from a career. Like, it was the right thing to do, but I was definitely walking away from like a path that I could have stayed on.
Yeah.
And I knew that had I have, and this is just for me, had I have, you know, kind of bent a little in any shape or form, I might have lost my determination for it. So like, I was so ultra focused that I was like, I don't want to make it that I have like anything to fall back on, because then I'm going to try less, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah, that makes.
And once I realized that there was a way to make money here, and we were making more money than we would have expected, and we were very lucrative as a duo, it was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. And it was really hard to get it off the ground to start with. Like, I had nothing.
Yeah.
And it was only because of the kindness of this family saying, you can live with us rent-free.
Wow.
So that was like our biggest investment you could ever imagine. And we kept moving around. We still kept going to Nashville, because we made connections in New York that introduced us to like a really high label in Nashville. Like, all these little things were pulling us to different places. So we were like, we'll base ourselves in Austin, but we will go to these cities and keep exploring.
Was there not an opportunity to make a sustainable living in Ireland playing, being a musician?
Not in the same way. Definitely. Not that I have seen. Now, I'm sure there's some people, but not that I've been able to.
Is it because of it's kind of like a saturated market in regards to, you know, the type of music that you're playing?
No, it's completely different perspective.
Okay.
People do not. No, it is changing and it is growing and it's getting much better, but especially in that early stage, working musicians that made it for a living were like wedding bands, cover acts. Like, there is music in the bars, but like the sessions weren't really paid. I'm sure there's ways to do it. Like, I was getting little inroads in London.
What do you mean by sessions? Like recording
like
sessions?
An Irish session? No, sorry. Like sitting on a corner of a bar, just playing music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like music is just kind of in a lot of Irish bars, or then, you know, in the corner of a pub, you'll see one guy with an acoustic guitar, but not really playing original music.
Okay.
So my whole thing was original. And also another big layer of this was when I was a teacher, I was writing a lot of music, and I got a production deal with a production company in London. I then got approached by Sony, A&R. So I went in and did some work with them, because they're like, wow, we really like what you're doing. But then they were like, would you be our act for the X Factor? Like, would you go in as a finalist? So like prepped me. And I was like, oh, wow, I don't know. I did this when I was 18 and it didn't really work out for me. I did a BBC show. But I was like, well, they kept kind of pushing it. We're like, you are like 27, you would be, you know, they're always looking for characters, really. It's not really, they've got a script to fill. They're not actually thinking, oh, this is an artist, we're going to really protect her, or, you know, nurture her. They had a script. I fit the part. I was a teacher, young teacher with like you know, I play the drum, I do all these things. I could see where it was interesting for them. But they obviously didn't want me to play original music. So I was like, well, can I play original music? They said no. And I was like, well, thank you. I'm not going to do it. And then they came back and were like, producer says you can play original music on the first show. Okay. So I did it. I went through different stages. Like, they did tell me you'll be to the judges' houses. So I got to meet the Osbournes and do all that stuff. But I wasn't, something was never quite feeling right for me. Like, I didn't really, like, they wanted me to like cry a lot. They wanted me to talk about my grandmother and like things. And I'd be like, I just, like, my dream is to become an artist and a musician. And my story is not lining up with your script here. And there was some frustrations. And then I went for like a whistle note and my voice cracked a little, and it was like TV gold for them. So they like the lions to the kill, you know, they were just like, oh, she's annoying anyway. So, and I don't think I was stable enough to deal with that at that point. So long story short, the reason I'm sharing this is when I jumped on a plane to America, that was another motive for me.
Got it.
So there's the point of that whole
story. That's I'm glad you.
So as much as I
that.
miss Ireland, there was also running away a little. So I love my home, but I was also like, there's too much press surrounding this one bad note that I sang. I want a fresh start.
So when you said you met the Osbournes, you're talking about like Ozzy Osbourne, right? Was he at least somewhat coherent?
Ish. It was like cool. We went to their house, and Sharon was amazing.
I bet. Yeah.
So got to meet her, and then Ozzy was just there, you know.
So you're doing gigs here in Austin. When you're an artist at that point, are you taking every gig that comes your way, regardless if it pays either an exposure?
At that point, when we were on Hustle Zone, we were like, I'm really proud of us, because I look back and I'm like, I could not have worked harder than... we could not have worked harder if we tried. We were busking. Yeah. We were like, every night we go to an open mic. We did not sit idle.
Yeah.
And I do believe that was the trajectory of why we got to create and build something so quickly.
I think that's what becoming an artist you have to go through, because even still to this day, if there's a job that I think is pretty cool, but the budget isn't up to my standard or whatever that could be, I mean, it's always fluctuating. I'm just like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I feel like there is some experience that or some lesson I'll learn out of this job, whatever the case may be. So in those times, what were some of the biggest takeaways from doing those jobs or playing those gigs?
I mean, just like when you're on a mission. So our mission was obviously to come over, create a new life, really develop and build something good musically. But also we then got a visa. So when you get a visa that you're like an O1, which is a person of exceptional ability, you have to prove yourself to the government every 3 years. So that's also in the back of my mind, right? So any of those opportunities that we took on, there were lots of reasons to take them. The one thing I took from them is that it was just always a ripple effect. So you'd never know like what was going to come from saying yes. And I said yes to the wrong things. Oh. But I also said yes to the right things. Yeah. And it's because I just kept saying yes. But even the wrong things, like they're just a beautiful lesson. As much as they can hurt you at the time, they teach you so much.
Oh my God, it's so hard to call those beautiful lessons, but you are right.
Yeah. Oh, but I had to flip it for like, because I could look at that TV experience, and I have done so negatively. And then I had to go, you know what? Had I have not done that, I would not be sitting in Austin in a beautiful little cottage, writing songs that I love, running like, I have to have these moments where I'm like, God, that nearly killed me. But you know what? I got out of bed eventually and dusted it off, and it still wears it. It still creates insecurities, right? But you can't let them control you forever.
Right. Now, there's this powerful tool called the internet. Mm-hmm. So in your instance, you hustled, you grinded it out, you took every job. Now, because of the internet, it seems like you can, I hate to say this word, but get popular just for a viral clip or whatever. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's a good thing or bad thing for artists coming up?
You know, I think you have to adapt to your surroundings, right? Like, I'm not one of these people that's like, you know, I'm not going to like damn things like because they don't work for me, like Spotify, blah, blah, you know what I mean?
I'll damn it all day.
And I just don't feel like, I get it. Like there's days I feel like a failure because of all of that, right. And that's not healthy either. But I think that, you know what, there's good and bad, there's light and dark to all of it. And I think some of these up and coming rising stars that are making it through those platforms, you know what, good for them. Like, but I feel like it's just two different worlds. Yeah. There's a live music circuit, and then there's an online like TikTok musician, which is just like formed on its own. I don't look at it and think, oh, that's not real. That's just whatever it is. Sure. But like, I am really grateful that I'm steeped in the other. I do wish that I would go viral. I wish all these things. I look at it and I feel like shit because I don't. Yeah. But I've started to like go, but what if we just looked over here and be like, wow, you get to actually play to real humans, and even if it's only 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people, you get to actually embrace something real.
Right.
But yet I do still chase the online stuff. So I'm guilty of it all.
I think it's a game that we have to play, but I feel like because you've learned those life lessons, you're just so well educated in what it takes to be a musician. And I think that gives more value to your audience because you understand going through, the throes of it. And I just don't think if you pop off on the internet, I don't think I don't want to be a curmudgeon, but I just don't think there's any substance there because you really haven't learned those hard lessons that you had to go through.
You haven't done the apprenticeship kind of, like, right. But also it's like, what's your pillow? Because if you pop off on the internet, like whenever that like big rocket ship stops, what do you fall onto?
Yep.
Whereas when you do it like the long, hard grafting way, nobody can take away any step that you make because you're doing it the right. Not that there's a right and wrong, but like you're doing it your own way. And the way that destiny has laid its path out before me, I have just taken that route, and all really is a lot of it I owe to one of my dearest friend, Ben Jones, because he's got a beautiful attitude towards that and really helped me navigate. We were a good team in that sense because I've got like a bulldog mentality of like, I'm not like a hard head. I'm very gentle and don't like a lot of confrontation, but I'm very laser beam focused.
Sure.
So like, I think in that realm, that kind of works for me because I will keep knocking on doors and I will keep asking. And if I have something that I believe in, I do have I'll be like, I'll try and go get it. But we did it slowly so that, and that's the beautiful thing about Austin. Like, this isn't really going anywhere. Like, we're always going to come and play the saxon and, be able to make a living by selling a room out like that, you know?
Saxon's an awesome place. I wish I attended more shows there, but I don't have the time.
I'll be there in a couple hours.
So when you first arrived to Texas, what was your family thinking? What were they thinking? Were they supportive? Were they like, oh, go, but we kind of have, they're going to be family, so they're going to be worried about you?
They were supportive, but they were definitely like, my mom's could not wrap her head around the fact that like this random family, who are nowhere near random anymore, but at the start they were, she just could not understand like that they had opened their home to us and let us live there. So
that Southern hospitality.
It's just a different in cultural things, But no, I think any family and any goal of a parent is that all they really want is to see their kid happy.
Yeah.
And I have had my battles with finding that peace and finding that happiness. And they watched the first few years be some of the hardest of my life. And now they're actually coming over for my parents came over once at the start, but my entire family are coming over in April. Oh. And I literally, it's just like, I feel like I'm really excited to share with them because it's not the hardest years of my life. Oh, years are going to be hard. There's going to be other hardships, right? But I finally feel like I'm in a place where I feel like, I can, like, I'm pretty proud of this, like, please come see it,
So talk about your nonprofit. How did that come to fruition? How did you develop that?
So I mentioned I was a high school teacher, loved that work, but was too young to be in it, and also had a dream to be an artist and go chase that for a while. I was definitely feeling a bit beaten up by the industry because I'm such an all or nothing person. I like to like learn about all the things that I need to do so that this is a hard lesson I'm learning too, is like I'm very capable, so I can do a lot of jobs. And when I got our first record deal, I kind of feel like it was like a mentorship. And it's like a really great record company called Surf Dog Records out in California. And they really taught me so much about the industry that I feel like I got bombarded with all of this, what I need to do, that it was, rather than like being able to utilize it, it was actually like just making me feel pressured. So I was like constantly feeling this like deep rooted pressure that I don't even think I wasn't really tapping into the true form of art, because I was like, couldn't take my business cap off. And it was great because I was building a good business, but I was just getting it just became too much. I think I burned out, and I was speaking to a friend about it who was a psychiatrist, and she was like, would you come for an afternoon with me to this children's home? I don't know why. I just feel like, just what you're going through, you just might need a little bit of balance here and there. And I just have an instinct. So she brought me, and I took a tour of Helping Hand Home for Children, and was completely like, that's a perspective shifter of, you're worried about your, subjectively you're worried about your own little career not going anywhere, and then you go into a home for children who have been deeply abused and traumatized. So I mean, it was just like my whole world stopped, and I got to see what these people were really like impacting, like they're saving children's lives. And I sat at the very end, and I was just like, in awe of all the staff. And I said, okay, a little light bulb went off, and I was like, I think I might know why I'm here. Like I was kind of, I was always just seeking that. I was like, do you have any music? And they were like, no. And I was like, okay, may I bring some music into the kids? I don't know what it looks like. I just know that I do have a teaching background. I have worked with children with autism before. It might be time for me to jump into there a little bit. So that was it. And we sat down, and I went for a couple of dog walks and find the name. I was like, Music Helps. Oh, that'd be cool. Why don't we make it a nonprofit? Oh yeah, let's do. And it all just was like ding, ding, ding. And then, we've developed, the first show I did was more of like a concert for the kids. Mm-hmm. Recognized that on that show, the kids really wanted to be involved. That was when you saw them come to life, really, because they're very removed from themselves. Mm-hmm. So then I developed it more into like an interactive workshop, and the community just got behind it. And part of my whole thing was coming from a musician background. I wanted to do something that if I don't like asking people to do too much for free or anything. So I wanted to be like, if I get musicians to come in, I would really like to offer some steady employment here. Like, could we do this? So that was like my infrastructure for it, was we'll employ musicians to come in, give back, and then they get healed. Everybody feels better, and the children feel great. And it was just this like no brainer of like, this is what we'll do.
So it seems like you're very business minded in a sense when it comes to your music. How is there a difference between running a business versus running a nonprofit, and what are those differences? Absolutely.
I think that you have fundamental skills that you apply to every aspect of your life. I don't really see them as like, I genuinely even think it's as much as your intimate relationships. Like you apply these fundamental pillars that you have for like, how you run things. But I have never been in the nonprofit world. Well, Ben jokes because he's like, we've been a nonprofit forever. You're a musician.
That's right. Yeah.
But I was really fortunate. One of the other projects I'm in is Ula, which is an Irish music project that I play with, which is just Irish music. We play at the Saxon on a Sunday at 5:30. Well, the bass player, Chris Wade, in that was also working in a nonprofit world. He works in the nonprofit world. So I'd had a few conversations with him, and I was able to like form a board of really strong mentors to kind of guide me through. I'm really close friends with Christine Albert from Swan Songs. So I was very open to the fact of this is a brand new world for me, but this is where I go back to these skills that we have. I feel like if you've got these kind of like, if you're open to learning, you don't want to go too fast, and you've got a real meaningful mission, then like you can learn everything else as you go along. So I'm constantly learning in the nonprofit world. And I feel like Austin has something like 600 nonprofits. So as soon as I started to voice that this is what I was doing, the support that came my way was like, hey, if you ever need a coffee, I could maybe help you and guide you. And that's one thing I always say yes. I will always go and have the coffee and have a chat and like go, oh wow, that was really helpful, or that wasn't helpful, or yeah. So that was kind of big learning curve, but and I'm still learning. I'll always be learning.
So how do you value being a musician and running a business? I guess, how do you place the value on music and still trying to earn an income? Because I think art is just, it's always fluctuating as far as value, because it's only valued as much as someone's willing to pay for it. You know? So how do you, in your brain, how do you work that out to be sustainable as a musician?
So it's taken some time. We have built, so if I look at Beetroot Revival, for example, which would be kind of the Beetroot and Andrea Magee are the kind of two breadwinners for music in the music world. I have like 3 umbrellas, and our 3 lanes. That we figured out how to be so our journey was crazy with Beetroot. I went to the right coffee shop, right time. We just made an album. I got talking to the right label, and we got put out on these big tours from a very early stage. And on those tours, our merch was selling phenomenally every night. So I said yes to a tour that was offering not a lot of money for each thing, but I made it work. We got offered, our first tour was with Brian Setzer, the guitar player.
Oh my God, Stray Cats. Yeah,
Stray Cats.
Very cool.
So that was who our label was, who we were with.
Okay.
And they said, hey, this was before we were signed. They were like, hey, we want to get to know you more.
Yeah.
We're looking for an opening act for the Christmas tour. Not very much money, 21 dates. Do you want it? I was on an airplane. Before I'd even finished the email, I had sent back yes. And Ben was like, what? How are we going to do this? What? That's like, and it was from here to New York to Buffalo. It was completely nationwide. And I was like, we figure it out. We just figure it out. That's like, this is what we've asked the universe for. This is what we're here for. So we got a personal loan from a friend to buy a van, like a Dodge Grand Caravan. Our friend Rhett, who's just like a savior in life, another like family member that came in when we first came to our first show. He was like, you know what? I'm retired. I'll drive you. And then I just got whatever money we could. I begged, borrowed, and we were so lucky that people were like, here's a personal loan. You must pay us back at this date, blah, blah, blah. We got merch. We had just done an album, and we went out on the road. And when I saw how much units we were selling and merch, I was like, wow, this was the hardest thing to get off the ground, but we've just made a really lucrative business decision. And our merch was carrying us to we ended up selling 120 CDs per night.
Okay. So I was about to ask, what was it about that merch? And in my head, I was thinking, T-shirts, really? You guys made
no, because we're so fortunate. The Stray Cats and any of the acts that we actually got to keep growing and going more have an older demographic audience. So that has also been a big part of our journey. Okay. So that audience is still a CD buying audience. Hell yeah. And I don't think it is anymore. No. But
I haven't bought a CD. I used to go to LA, and I would go to Meva Records, and I'd buy $300 worth of CDs.
Yeah.
I haven't bought a CD
but now the kind of, it has flipped into vinyl, so we've kind of pivoted a little, but that was the starting point for us. And that was then, you just springboard off that. So then we got on a tour with Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. So then we did 3 years touring with him as the opening act.
Wow.
And that was I don't know, it's hard to put it all in words, but that was when I saw how lucrative Beetroot was. Even when we don't get a fee, this audience still will support us. So I owe it all to those audiences. And when I saw, oh wow, we have this very unique sound that people seem to gravitate towards, and that's why we got signed to all the deals. But again, that doesn't mean, and we're walking proof, we got signed to this big deal. We made a big record, but there wasn't a lot of financial backing. And during the pandemic, they had to let us go. So it's just been it's been like this.
It's a roller coaster.
But because of those, we were able to springboard into next level up. Okay, now these festivals will book us and they'll pay us our fee. We got an agent from that. We got 2 agents actually. But they're all little moments that help it. That the live music scene is where you're going to make your money. We've never made a lot of money on any streaming sites. We've got basically non-existent there, but yet we have this world that we can dip into and play. We've got a big pocket in New Mexico. We got a pocket, different little parts. And I've just kind of took that model and just kept kind of pivoting and figuring it out. And then you know, and then it's led me to like having a music festival now, which is another big part of my business.
Music festival.
Yeah, so I have
Is this new?
So it's going to be then its third year.
Oh shit.
So I have a music festival in Taos, New Mexico called She Rises.
Okay.
Which came from a music festival that Beetroot played for 5 years. We're like a little staple act there, the Big Barn Dance. It's a sellout 2,000 intimate, beautiful music festival in Taos, you know, just beautiful setting. The promoter from that came to me a couple of years ago and was like, hey, you love to support women. We've got this weekend. Would you like to put on your own music festival? And you know me, I said yes. I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing. But that's not completely true. I said yes. And then he was like, I'm going to put you with Sarah Hearn, who runs the Big Barn Dance. We partnered up. I am like, if you give me an inch, I might run a mile before you even see me do it. So like within 24 hours, because of my like teaching background, I got on and made this proposal with a budget, with everything. I didn't know anything about this, but I was like, I'm just going to have a go. And I put this thing together and I sent it to them and they were like, are you kidding me? This was an idea. This has now become a thing. And yeah, so this will be the third one. I'm going to Taos next week to solidify our venue for year 3. We had Katie Tunstall, Sean Colvin, Yola. So the whole thing is an all-female lineup, but everybody's welcome.
Sure.
And it supports the Music Helps nonprofit. It's our fundraiser.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, I feel like such an asshole when I talk about all this
Why?
stuff. I don't know. I think
you've earned the right to be an asshole.
Yeah, well,
right?
it just sounds like, you know, when you're like, well, I don't think I would like myself if I was watching this.
Oh, stop it. I think you've earned the right. I've
worked hard, but when I hear it all coming out, I'm like, oh God.
You have a lot of life experiences that I think female musicians would find this very interesting. And going on that note, like I've had 3/5 of the West Texas Exiles on this podcast, and I've talked about their experiences. But I want to hear your perspective as a female in this industry. What's it like? Is it hard? Is it different? Is it?
You know, I don't know if it's different because I've only been a female, but so I've never been a guy walking into a meeting.
Right.
But no, I think that obviously, yes, that is the whole premise of She Rises.
Yeah.
Females do not get booked as much. They do not get paid as much as male musicians. I attended Brandy Carlisle's Girls Just Wanna. That's when the idea for this really was born. I had a little like, oh, I'd like to do this. I like what she's all about. Like hers is, you know, booking more women, basically. My personal experience is that I have only came across incredible people on my journey. I have not had any horror stories. I have noticed in certain environments, like when we were shopped around LA for all the agencies, there was always like, you would go, it's such a bizarre thing. You go into these like big buildings and it was wonderful. I'm so glad I got those experiences, but you go in, you go up to the top floor, you go into a conference room, you play a song to 12 people. There's one female and the rest are men, you know?
And that's what I'm kind of coming at this from what my wife has to deal with. Like she has a lot of experience in the nursing industry and she's seen some shit, literally, figuratively, and metaphorically. Yeah. And so when she's conversing with some doctors, it's like, I feel like she's getting overlooked because of the power of one, being a doctor, but also there's a male doctor. Yeah. So I feel like her experience is invalid compared to, you know, a doctor who's a male. So I was just curious, like, you know, I'm sure it's tougher because.
Yeah, I think that people tend to book less women. So like that is going to be something that we're always going to go up against. There are years and years of women being seen as lesser, right?
Oh, like, for sure.
So we are talking about ancestral pain here, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the only thing that we can do is lead by a really beautiful, positive example. And I think our whole motto is when she rises, we rise. Women have a way of nurturing. I do come from a very nurturing father as well, so I feel like I got the best of all of it. But I feel like in order to, I'm not one to like I don't want to like point out all the negatives of all the situations that we're in. I want to take action and I want to try and do things. And that's what this festival is about. So when this was placed in my lap, I'm an action person. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be the most eloquent in like standing up on like a political forum and shouting about this, but I can get shit done. And that's the way that I'm approaching this change. And to see the men that have came and supported this festival, it has been so beautiful because it's become this collective of like, yeah, you know what? They are booked less. Why? Because they're just as talented. And I don't know why, but it's history. It's just like, and some people are just more comfortable with certain things, but we're trying to break those barriers and go, let's give us a chance, you know?
Yeah. So when it comes to putting on a festival, what are some things that you didn't think about that you're like, oh shit, I should have thought about that?
I did not realize it was going to consume my life. That was something that, so it had my name. So Andrea Magee, She Rises. I'm really good at like visionary, like, the booking, the how it looks, the color of it, everything. Like I have this mind for like, I see it and then I'm like, how do I create that? The one thing I did not foresee would be how much pressure I would feel to grow. Like getting something off the ground is so difficult. Any business that you start, this is a business. And getting a female music festival that like already has like a couple of things against it, like because of the way that things book or whatever, like there was just so many things that I didn't realize that, wow, this is an obstacle. But you know what? The universe picked someone that does not give up. And I have fought and I have dug my feet in on moments that I thought, I don't think I can do this. Like this is like an impossible task. I don't live in Taos. I love it, but I'm an unknown person in a lot of the world. I'm relatively known in Austin. That's it. I'm known to my friends, but I do have a good heart and I have a good mission. So it was just like, there was all these obstacles, but I keep going.
Yeah.
And then when you see the response and the feeling and the way that people, like, so we always open it with an Indigenous women's choir. Like, even if it's, we would love to sell 2,000 tickets. We're still selling about 700 tickets, around that mark. And it's only on its third year coming up. We need to sell more. So financially, it's been quite difficult as well. But when you see one-on-one the changes that it makes in women and people and men, like I had this guy come up to me and be like, you just made me a better dad.
Aww.
Like what in the world would you want more than that?
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's
like
no financial marker that can,
But I am
compare that to.
The thing is I wear all the hats, so I know the financial markers and I'm like, yes there is. Shit. So it's been a balancing act. That's been the way and I love it and I'm so grateful for it. But it's been a real lesson on how I need to put some healthier boundaries around myself.
I want to go on this tangent. So you said you don't give up, right? Have you ever given up when it comes to songwriting, when a song isn't just working? They're just like, this is shit. I'm going to throw it away.
I'm sure I have, but not a lot. I for some reason, like, this happens to me a lot when I start writing a song. I get the inspiration. I start writing it. I love it for a minute. And then I'm like, oh, shit. It's shit. This is so shit.
I think that's just the artist's journey.
No, but then, it totally is. But then I'm like, there's always this little voice that goes, keep playing it for another 30 minutes. Just do it for another 30 minutes. And then it's like something happens and I finish it. And not all the ones I finish do I play out. But to be honest, most of them I give them a shot. And that's the beautiful thing. I love my shows at the Saxon on a Thursday because like that's kind of where I test out a lot of stuff. But yeah, I always write songs in twos, so I always know there's a second coming. And with songs for me, it's like waves. Like I don't like force it if it's not there. Like I tend to write a lot because I'm an emotional person and songwriting was my first form of therapy as a kid. So I didn't know therapy is just not done in Ireland. So I was like, okay, I'm a really emotional kid in a family that doesn't really talk about emotions. Okay, hi art. I love you. Let me draw and let me sing and let me play. And that was when I really found what songwriting truly means for me. And then I realized, people like these. Yeah. So it was like, that's kind of.
You seem like you come from a very hardworking family. Are they by nature very critical? And what I mean by that is, like, from my family, they grew up poor, they grew up with nothing. So everything that they did need to have some sort of financial thing coming back to them to match the effort. And so, like, some of the stuff that I did, they're just like, really? That's what you're going to do? Is there a healthcare involved? Is there a retirement? Were they critical?
Yes, I think
because I feel like Catholics by nature are very critical.
Yeah, in a very loving manner.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
My dad still to this day, like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I played a show this weekend, and like the first thing he'll ask me is like, did you make money?
Exactly.
It's literally,
exactly.
Yeah. So yes,
okay.
Like, but I think it's more like he asks me that because he wants to know if I'm okay.
Sure.
Right. So it's not like, but there are other parts. So I come from a family of athletes. So my family it's very much sport oriented. So I grew up in sport, and we all played 2 sports at quite a high level because our parents played at a high level. So that has played a big part into the inner critic in my life and in my family, because we have really high standards. So
that's where I was going with that question.
Yeah.
Is it like in the back of your head, or is it because of that growing up with the family being so critical? It seems like it can be a bad thing, but if you use it to your advantage, it can create, beautiful outcomes.
Absolutely. I think it can be a bit of a monster, but you have to make friends with a monster and then tame it. That's the way I kind of look at it. Because but when it goes with the sport stuff, like sport, you're like, so you have natural ability, which we all do in our household. And then we also have this determination. So it's like, you just can't be shit. So that's basically like and that has been my upbringing, and I've had to battle with that, especially when it comes to art, because art is so subjective and it's not sport.
Yeah.
And that's one thing Ben has been really good at nurturing me in, is like, Andrea, you're not playing a sports game. But he's also like, but I'm glad you played it because our business is so good.
Yeah.
Right? So it is like a 2-headed monster, like, that you have to find some form of like peace with. I
know when I first started filming stuff, I wanted a textbook. I wanted some sort of formula for what makes a good video, whether it be the amount of light coming out of a source or what settings are in the camera. And honestly, I'm just figuring out, like, everything is kind of made up in my world. So, and I set my own standards and my own, foundation of what I think is a good video. So in regards to creating music, what are some of those foundations that you created for yourself when it comes to creating music, either with yourself or with others?
For me, it has to come from a really true, honest emotion. Okay. Like, if I write with like a kind of an idea and it's not an emotional, like, core, like, it comes from my stomach, I tend to I'm not naturally gravitating towards playing that song live or doing anything with it. So that's the way I've always approached, like, and for a long time, I was just like wishing and praying, oh my God, well, please just let one of these be a hit. But that's not, because the hit is quite a formulaic thing. And I've went in and I've written with writers in Nashville. I've done those things. And I'm like, I can do this. I've got hooks, top lines. I don't feel anything. Yeah. If I don't feel something, I don't really want to be a part of it. And that's taken years. That, like, when we got signed to that deal, I was like, oh my God, I got a first major record deal.
That's what everyone wants.
Yeah. And I'd be like, what do you need from us? What do you like? And I had to learn. And Ben was like, why are you, like, we're doing it. It's from us. And I'm a bit of a pleaser, because I was like, these guys are successful, so they're helping us. But I had to learn by going through it and, like, really maintaining those relationships with those people, and then being like, as soon as they were like, hey, pandemic, we got to focus on Clapton, we're like, oh, okay. You're like, okay, now this hurts. What do I do? What do I go back to? And you go back to writing music that means something, always. So that's been the one lesson that I'm like, oh, if you don't write something that means something, you don't do something, me personally, it has to come from my heart. Music helps. It comes from my heart. When I see those children, I am like, it's like I'm in an outer body experience. I I forget my whole self. All I want to do is help them.
Yeah.
Same with the She Rises. When I see women feel seen and feel like they have an opportunity to get on a festival stage and like an opportunity that they can't seem to break the door down for, it feels really good. And when I write a song that comes from like a really deep emotional place and it helps someone, like that, for me, that it has to just come from a really, like I have to make it feel something.
Yeah. Well, we're almost at an hour. Started my timer a little bit late. What is coming up in 2025 for you?
So I have been sitting on music for a long time because 2 years ago,
typical musician.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't for me. Like, since I came here in 2014, we released as Beetroot 7 albums. I released 3 solo albums. So like, it actually, I could see the pattern in a lot of people, but it wasn't really my thing that I was doing. I got the opportunity for She Rises and I got lost in it. I got lost in that and also applied myself beautifully to the Music Helps mission. And I've sat on some music that was ready just before that all came about. And now I'm like, okay, I think I've finally figured out how to balance all of this, because I will do all of them. People are like, you can't do it all. I'm like, fucking watch me. Because I am only going to live once and you just can't tell me what I can and can't do. So I actually can. Okay. And it's not all of it. Like, right. Obviously there's parts of my life that probably hugely I make sacrifices in. But at the minute, I want to get this new music out, make another album. I'm just about to dive in. I'm going to Taos to get She Rises big lineup for the third one going. And I'm back in the home with the children this week. Okay. So that's going to just be, I can already see my year, you know?
Right on. So the thing that I've learned, and hopefully I get to this point, is that when you run a business, you have to hire people to do some of the jobs, because I hate to say this, but you can't always.
You can't do it all. No, please don't hate me for that. I can't, like, the one, I want to clarify that actually. I won't give up on any one of those missions. Okay. I will find the workers to help me make it happen, or the teams.
So what are some of the things when it comes to, I guess, well, let's say running a festival, what are some of the things you're willing to relinquish, or what are you looking for to hand off
in order to do it right,
share the work?
Yeah, in order to do it right this year, I have realized and recognized that I cannot do it the way I did it the last couple of years, because I was wearing way too many hats. And what you need is funding to get professionals to do the jobs that, like, you can delegate out. That's what I'm really seeing, like, utilizing the funding that you get in the right way to, like, not completely destroy yourself. So, because I was like, oh, the funding, I must apply that to the artist budget or things like that. Whereas now I'm like, okay, what if we reduce the artist budget? We actually employ more events teams. Like, actually, but you only learn by doing. So yeah, I definitely believe that the only way that I can, keep everything going and not give up is by finding professionals that come in and support. And that also comes from people supporting your endeavors. Like, I have had huge investors come in and be like, I've now seen you put the proof in the pudding. We trust you with our investment because we know what you've been capable of. So I feel like that kind of comes when you prove your worth. And that's the goal, and that's the dream for all of this, is that we can build it into something that offers employment for people. It still has a really deep value of a mission. I don't run myself into the ground, and it just flourishes on its own through teamwork and support. So that is what I mean when I say I will do it all. I won't do it all. I just will facilitate how to make sure that they don't fall apart.
I have 2 more questions. We're right at, from your phone, 3:57. Yeah. So Spotify. Mm-hmm. As a consumer of Spotify, it's a great way for me to kind of discover new music, but also those musicians that I know, they're always telling me, oh yeah, I need to put my music. I'm like, there's literally a platform for you to do it. And I'm coming at this from, well, now this is kind of turning into 2 questions. So when you made your revenue from your merch, you invested in in those CDs because they come at a cost. And then you would then, charge whatever you charge to, remake that payment or remake that loan, whatever. And then you would get a profit off of that. So Spotify, how do you profit off of Spotify?
I mean, in my mind, we're at this like kind of middle ground level of artistry. I don't think you do. Okay. Like I think that the only way, and I'm not very experienced in this, my idea is, or my like kind of lack of knowledge that I do, this little bit of knowledge I do have, I feel like it's the top of the top are the only ones that seem to make anything from it, but I still don't think that's where their main income comes from. So it's such a strange, it's a beautiful, amazing, free asset, yet
as a consumer, yes, it is.
As a consumer, as an artist, it also can make you feel like shit because you think, oh my God, like my followers go up and down really rapidly on that. Yeah. I have not conquered that area. I've not applied a lot of my energy into it, but it also, I think I've stepped away from it because it makes me feel like a failure. So I avoid it.
Wow, what a tangent. I was also that's the next question. But I mean, I see it as a tool for musicians, and I know that social media can also make you feel like a failure as well, and I'm glad that you said Spotify can make you feel like a failure even though you're not.
Well, because you're comparison. It's the comparison thief.
So in regards to failure, what was one real failure, and you don't have to go in description be as descriptive about it, but what was one real failure that you learned from? It was like, okay, I'm never going to make that mistake again.
So I got caught up in the pay to play playlist thing on Spotify. Yeah. And I really I don't know whether it was a failure because it taught me a lot. Like it ended up my numbers obviously grew from it. Like you pay to be viewed on a playlist or whatever, but it turned out one of the systems I was using was bots. They flagged it and they've taken one of my albums down, and I lost all the organic streams as well. So I mean, that was just something that I would encourage people to stay away from. I learned the hard way. Yeah. There are other ways. There's Submit Hub. There's not healthy, but safer platforms, because it's very easy to go, because it's a lot of our business is creating an illusion, right? And the illusion is you're really good on stage and you're amazing, but if someone looks at your Spotify number, they're like, oh, I couldn't book that person. So you want to create the illusion, so it's terrible. A trap. Yeah. But now that I live on the other side of it, where I book a festival, I also know it from the other perspective. Yeah. So I can get it that I might look at things, but that's where I want to change our festival a bit. I do watch the video. I'm like, oh, wow. And I will base it on, do I believe that this would be the right act? It doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means what's the energy of the flow. So that's where I feel like we can conquer being a failure, like telling ourselves we're a failure. If someone doesn't choose you for a booking or a festival, it might not be because you don't think you're good enough, or they're saying you're not good enough. It might just be because they already have a couple of acts and they need to fit a specific type of thing. And that's where art's so subjective, right? It's a mind game. And it's the same for me, my numbers on Spotify look like shit, but yet the content that's up there I'm pretty proud of. It's good music. It's music from a deep, emotional, honest place. So
in regards to failure, I was at a very important shoot for a lot of money, and one of the cameras wouldn't start recording. So in that moment, I would say, 2 years prior to that, I would be just a manic freak. I would have just panicked. I don't know what I would have done at that moment. But in that moment now, which happened a month ago, I was like, there's a lot of bad shit happening around the world. This camera not running, it's not that big of a deal. So when it comes to your idea of failure in general, what is something that you gravitate to is it is what it is?
I honestly think that the nonprofit has saved me, the work with the nonprofit. Whenever I go in and I work with the children one-on-one, literally I feel pathetic thinking that even talking about Spotify, I'm literally oh my word, life is so much more than all of that. And I know we want to run our careers, and I know we want successful businesses, but if you take a moment to be kind to someone, you'll forget about your obsession with Spotify. You'll forget about, what you're doing wrong, or what, like, we got to keep trying. I get it. And it's hard and all that, but shift it a little. That's what when I'm in with those children, I just start to care less, because I'm like, this doesn't matter. It does matter, but it doesn't matter in the same realm of depth of life,
Yep.
So that's been my, like, when I go in on a Tuesday and I work with those children, I'm just like, this is, as much as we're giving back, and I know they're getting a lot, I'm getting healed. Like, I'm getting to be, like, grounded and really put into a place of wholesome, like, we're all looking for peace, right? We're all looking to live a peaceful life. And that, I don't know, giving back in that manner just kind of brings me out of the little spiral I can get to tell myself I'm a failure.
Awesome. Well, what time's your show tonight?
6 o'clock.
2 hours. Okay.
2 hours.
You got 2 hours to kill. All right, cool. Well, Andrea Magee, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. And here's to 2025 and making it awesome.
Scary. It's 2025. Amen to that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.